Good morning and welcome to Leadership Live with Anton Gunn. It's great to be with all of you. First, you can see that I'm not in my home office location. I'm actually on location, currently in Charlotte, North Carolina, getting ready to go catch a plane to Nashville. I have a keynote in Nashville this week, and so I'm excited about going back to one of my favorite cities in America. But today I want to continue the conversation that we've had over the last couple weeks, and that is how you and your organization and your teams are going to respond as it relates to this election. The last couple weeks I talked about how division could impact your workforce, how all of the changes in politics could have an impact on your morale, your culture, and also you as a leader. Well, today I want to talk about the fact that we're now 8 days past the election, that election season can bring a lot of good things, a lot of excitement, a lot of positive energy, but it also can bring a lot of anxiety and uncertainty, particularly as it relates to post-election changes around policy that may impact your industry. So whether you're in aviation, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in banking and finance, whether you're in manufacturing, change can be very disruptive to your business model, to your team culture, to departments in your organization. So the question is, when this level of uncertainty exists right now, because again, we're still 70 plus days before inauguration, and then we have another 4 years of President Trump. So the question is, what will these things mean for you, your team, your organization, your industry? The answer is you don't know at this point in time. And because you don't know, your team doesn't know. And so when you have this level of uncertainty, it can really be paralyzing to your workforce. It could be paralyzing to everything that you're attempting to do in business and industry. So what I want to do is I want to help you prepare as a leader, and how you can help your organization prepare for what may come, because you got to provide some level of consistency and certainty, particularly in a time and an era when you don't know what change may be. I mean, let's face it, we're all creatures of comfort. We like things to stay the same. Nobody likes change. It doesn't matter what the change is. Change can be very disruptive. And so I want you to know that you don't necessarily know what new changes in policy, in regulation, in legislation that could literally fundamentally transform your industry, transform everything that you do as a team and an organization. So higher education, you can expect some changes to come. If you're in healthcare, you can expect some changes to come. If you are in the manufacturing sector, you can expect some changes to come, but you don't know what those changes are. So I want to give you some frameworks, or if you will, 4 things that great leaders do to help their teams to prepare for change and to deal with the uncertainty that might be ahead. And so I'm going to lay these out for you as simply, as quickly, as efficiently as I can. And then I'm going to get prepared to catch this flight to Nashville. But I wanted to make sure that I came on today and to give you this value to make sure everybody is prepared for what may come. So the first thing that you need to understand, that post-election changes are real. And because they are real, you need to acknowledge them and not ignore them. There's some leaders who want to try to bury their heads in the sand and think that, you know what, nothing is going to affect us. We're recession proof. We're too big to fail. We're whatever they want to say about that they're not affected by changes. It's a mistake, because there are people who work for you right now who are going to be affected by some aspect of policy change. They're going to be affected economically. They're going to be affected socially. They may be affected mentally, morally. It doesn't matter. They're going to be affected. So whenever you start to hear about changes, you need to acknowledge them and not ignore them. Now, let me caveat what I'm saying here about you need to acknowledge those changes. It's hard to acknowledge what you don't know and what you don't understand. So it's a premium opportunity for you as a leader to understand what changes may come and what those changes may be. Now, here's what I'm not telling you to do. I'm telling you not to watch television, cable news every day. So if it's Fox, if it's MSNBC, if it's CNN, you need to turn that off. Let me tell you why you need to turn it off. Because all 3 of those networks are not full of journalists. They have a few journalists that work for them, but most of the people on air are pundits. They are political prognosticators. They have a biased perspective, either for or against someone or something. And they're brought on to be a color commentator to give their opinion, not facts, but their opinion. So you need to find the facts to acknowledge what the changes may be and not ignore those changes. So where do you find the facts? Well, simply, the first place for you to find the facts is right inside of your industry. So what do I mean inside of your industry? You have a trade association or some national association that oversees your profession, that oversees your department or oversees your industry, and even the products and services that you serve or deliver for people. So what you should be doing is spending as much time learning from your industry leadership, your industry peers, around what these changes might mean for your industry. So for instance, if you're in higher education, there are councils on higher education, governing bodies above your board of trustees, your board of directors. You need to be paying attention to what potential changes from the Trump administration might impact you. If you're in aviation or aerospace, you need to understand what Trump's policies might mean for international travel, what it might mean for tourism, what it might mean for cargo shipping. You got to understand that. And the only way you're going to understand that is to talk to your industry leadership. Let them give you the pure, unadulterated truth about what these post-election changes might mean for you, your industry, and the teams in which you lead. Like if we take a much more stronger, hawkish position on China, that could affect everything from manufacturing to cybersecurity. So the question is, if you're in manufacturing, what do you know about the positions or the position that the Trump administration may take? If you're in cybersecurity, are you going to be bombarded with more attacks? Do you have to have a greater risk assessment? Do you need to develop a new risk profile? How many attacks have you seen, denial of service attacks have you seen over the last year and a half? And what do you need to do to prepare for that if they triple or quadruple? So I'm telling you, the first thing you need to do as a leader, if you want to help your team to navigate and adapt and align through any kind of presidential transition or any kind of leadership transition, you got to stay situationally aware of what's going on and acknowledge those things and not ignore them. You ignore them at your own peril. There are plenty of people who ignore change and ignore what might be transitioning. And then 12 months from now, 18 months from now, 24 months from now, they're 50% of the size that they were before. And God forbid, some of them end up out of business. I don't want that to happen to you or your team. So I need you to acknowledge that change is real, change is coming, and that you are on top of it by getting the best information, the highest quality, the highest integrity information from your industry sources. But don't watch the cable news. They don't know anything. Matter of fact, you'd be better off joining me every Wednesday at 9 a.m. and let me give you the facts. And if you got questions, please send me a direct message, send me insights. I could probably give you more insight on your industry and what the national landscape may mean than 90% of the people on TV. And that's facts. I'm not hyperbole around that, but I'm well read, well studied, and I talk to people on all sides of the aisle in every aspect of this work. And so I want to help you to be better as a leader and be more prepared. But I'm telling you right now, focus on your industry, insiders, your industry leadership. Let them tell you what it may be, but I want you to know for sure your employees, the people that work for you, they're paying attention to it. They're not going to turn off the cable news. They're paying attention to everything. And so when they're paying attention to everything, you want to be able to sanitize, clarify, distill down to what's real and what's not for your team. So acknowledge that change is coming and don't ignore it, because people want to know. Your team wants to know. And if you don't have any answers or you pretend that there are no answers, you're demonstrating to them that you're not ready to lead and you're not prepared for whatever change may come. So that's the first thing that great leaders do, is that they acknowledge that change is coming, they don't ignore it, and they prepare their teams by having the best information. Now, the second thing that I need you to do, if you want to help your team to navigate through whatever change may come, positive or negative, you have to refocus your people on your mission, your values, why you are in business. Because let's face it, Number one, you're not political prognosticators. Your company doesn't exist for that. You have customers to serve, you have a mission to fulfill. So what is your mission statement? Who do you serve? Why? What product or service do you provide right now in this world? And who is it for? And how is your team staying focused on that? Well, they're going to be distracted and overwhelmed by things that happen in the election. So your job as a leader is to keep them focused on what matters. What matters is your mission. What matters is your purpose as a business. So if you're in higher education, your job is to educate students no matter what the change is. If you're in the aviation industry and you fly commercial flights, your job is to get passengers from one location to another on time, safely, and with security, and allow them to get on with their lives. If you're in the travel industry, your job is to have satisfied customers because people had great vacations. So you got to refocus your team on the mission. What's important? Now, I know I sound like a broken record, and I know some of you don't know what a broken record is, but I'm repeating myself over and over again to tell you to stay focused on your mission. Why am I doing that? Because it's the most important thing. If you don't fulfill and execute on your mission, why are you in business? Why are you choosing to get up and come to work every day? It's not because you want to pay attention to politics and you want to pay attention to social issues. You get up every day to fulfill a mission. You have someone to serve, a problem to solve, a need to meet, a connection to make, something to deliver. If you're FedEx and UPS, it doesn't matter what happens on election day. You still got to get me my packages on time. If you're Amazon, you still got to get people packages on time. You got to make sure people's websites don't go down. You got to make sure that you house that data safely and securely and that nobody is hacked. You have a mission. Stay focused on the mission and keep your team focused on the mission. So remind them over and over again what the mission is, what they should be doing, how they should be doing it. That is your responsibility, is to keep them focused on the mission. Now, here's the third thing that I want to remind you to do, and what great leaders do with their teams, is that they keep them and encourage them around maintaining flexibility and adaptability. Because I want you to know that change is a constant. Change is always going to come. There's always going to be something new and different. And because change is always going to come, you have to be adaptable. I'm going to remind you, like, I have a favorite movie. I have maybe have not shared this with you before, but one of my favorite movies is a movie called Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood. It's a mid-1980s military movie, and y'all know my affinity and my support and passion for military in my family. And the movie is about Clint Eastwood, who's a gunnery sergeant who takes over a recon division that is pretty dysfunctional. They're dysfunctional, they're not organized, and he comes in with a great leadership framework to get them back on the same page. Well, one of the themes for this recon platoon is 3 words: improvise, adapt, and overcome. So I'm telling you right now that as change comes to your industry, as change comes to our nation, as change comes to the agencies that might oversee and regulate what you do, you have to keep your mind and your team's mind on those 3 words: improvise, adapt, and overcome. I mean, to be honest with you, our species as human beings on this planet is still here because we've learned how to improvise, adapt, and overcome. It doesn't matter what the change is. It doesn't matter how hard the change is. If you love the change, if you hate the change, your responsibility is to improvise, adapt, and overcome. And you have to help your team improvise, adapt, and overcome. So keep the mindset is let people know that we have to be flexible and adaptable as these changes roll out, because we might hear about a change and we have to react to it as a business. So we start to make changes because we heard something is going to be different in this way. And then 12 months later, there's a legal decision that stops that change from happening or reverses it in the opposite direction. And your people might get totally frustrated. Man, we did all of this work to get this down this track, and all of a sudden, now we have to change. Well, it's going to be like that for a long period of time, like literally for the rest of your life. If you don't believe me, ask the realtors who sell real estate in the real estate industry about the legal lawsuit that happened just last year that is now changing how they have to do business, particularly if you are a buyer's agent. So change is going to come. You have to remind your team to improvise, adapt, and overcome. That's what great leaders do. They help their team to stay flexible and adaptable. Now, the last thing that I will tell you that great leaders do to help their teams to navigate changes post an election cycle is, number one, they communicate. And what do I mean communicate? They communicate with clarity and consistency. That you have to always communicate with your team. You have to let them know what you know. This is not the time to say you're only going to know what you need to know when I think you need to know it. No, that doesn't never really work in an organization. But when you're facing significant change, it's your job to communicate with clarity. People should not find out what the change is on the news. They shouldn't find out about it at the water cooler. They shouldn't find out about it on the streets. They should find out about it from you, which means you need to communicate with some consistency and some clarity. So whether it's a weekly, change update, a quarterly change update, a monthly change update, or an hourly change update. I don't know the frequency of what the changes may be for you in your industry, but I know your team deserves to know what change is coming. And they need to hear it from you as a leader. So it's not just an email update, but it might need to be video. It might need to be in person. You might need to get out of your comfort zone and travel and go and see all of your teams at every department, at every aspect of the industry and the locations in which you operate. So let me close by telling you what this communication needs to look like. Before I tell you that, I want you to understand that communication comes in three different parts. Part number one are the words that you choose to use. Part number two is the tone of the words that you choose to use. And part number three is the body language attached to the person delivering the message. So when I say all three of those are important, I want you to understand that the words you use are 7% of effective communication. Your tone is 38% of effective communication. So your tone of using those words is more important than the words that you use. So you could say, "Good morning, America." And if you say that with a negative tone, then people not going to believe it's a good morning. But if you say, "Good morning, America," with a positive tone, they're going to believe that. So your tone is more important than the words, "Good morning, America." But more important than the words and the tone is your body language. Body language is 55% of effective communication. So how you stand, how you position yourself, your facial expressions, how you hold your head, how you move your hands, all of that is going to communicate whether you actually believe that what you're saying. And we've seen it time and time again that leaders try to deliver good messages by reading from a prepared statement, but their body language says that I'm nervous. The body language says that I'm scared. Body language says that I really don't believe the words that I'm saying. So I'm telling you right now, you need to change up how you deliver information and how you deliver messages. Remember, your words are important, your tone is more important, and your body language is most important. So choose them carefully, deliver them with the right tonality, and most importantly, project the confidence of what a leader should project. But again, don't lie, don't mistake, don't over-exaggerate, don't under-exaggerate. Deliver the information clearly, consistently, and effectively to your team and your organization. And I also want to say you need to demand this from any leaders that you need to get information from. So if those industry publications are places you need to get information from, if it's your CEO that you need to get information from, if it's your board of directors that you need to get information from, your job is to demand all of these same things. Clear communication. So let me recap as I close so I can go catch this plane. Number one, political changes bring all kinds of uncertainty to leaders. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter your industry, you're going to deal with some level of change that's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be disruptive. And whatever that uncomfortableness is, whatever that change, whatever that disruption may be, you want to make sure that you help your team to navigate through these tough times. And there are four things that great leaders do. the first thing that great leaders do is that they acknowledge that change is coming and they don't ignore what those changes might mean. So acknowledge it and don't ignore it. Number two, the second thing you should always do, and what great leaders do, is to keep people refocused on the mission. Get them refocused on the mission, why you exist, why you do what you do. So keep people focused on the mission, not about the changes, not about politics, not about what's happening in government, but what are you designed and developed and determined to do in business and in your industry. Keep people focused on the mission. The third thing is to encourage people to remain adaptable and flexible, because change could come multiple times. Just because something changed once doesn't mean it's going to stay there. It can change multiple times, particularly if there's a leadership group that is erratic with its policy decisions. So you need to understand how to improvise, how to adapt, and overcome. That's what your responsibility is. And then the fourth thing is communicate with clarity and consistency. The more you communicate with clarity and consistency, the more comfort and safety that your team is going to feel. And that's what you want to provide to them, particularly as change comes in. People need something to be constant. And what should be constant more than anything else is the leader that they work for, the team that they're on, the business that they're in, and what they get the privilege to do every day. And that's all up to you. So if this video had some impact for you, I want you to share it, like, comment, give me some feedback. If you have more questions, I'm happy to answer them. But I appreciate your time and your attention. I'm excited about being with you. Thank you for joining me for Leadership Live. Everybody have a fantastic day. Take care.